Hey y'all, this is Siege, and I wanted to go over my impressions of Destiny 2. You know, I was excited after watching the first mission. It was engaging, intense. Playing with Zavala and Ikora was a neat switch, and seeing an area that I'd always viewed as just a social space used as an actual war zone was really cool. Not to mention some of the new abilities and supers were just out of this world as far as what Bungie did to evolve the current subclasses. The Sunsinger Dawnblade in particular stood out to me as the best of the new supers. And it looks like the stuff they got right originally, you know, fantastic visuals, both in the environments as well as the missions themselves, the variety of things to do in the game. I'm especially interested in the Lost Sectors aspect they introduced. And finally, and probably the most important, the gameplay are still intact. It looks just as fun and, for lack of a better term, addictive as the first one. Destiny has always had that let me play just one more game aspect to it. And for many of us who have put insane numbers of hours into it, I think that's been the thing that has us always coming back for more, with usually no hesitation to purchase the next DLC. It's just always been that good. And from what I've been watching over the past few days, nothing has changed in that area. Because of all the new, though, I did want to wait a few days to digest what I saw before posting an assessment of where Destiny 2 appears to be heading. Now that I have, I'm just going to tell you right now that if you don't temper your enthusiasm and ease up on all the hype, you're most likely going to be disappointed. Here's my thought process. I'm going to skip past the whole world without light thing because if it is, it sure doesn't stay that way for very long. As far as I can tell, light seems to be just as prevalent in this game as in the last. We still have our supers, melees, and grenades, as well as light levels on all the weapons and armor. Even the ghosts and other players revive us just like before. Maybe they're insinuating that everyone else doesn't have light, or maybe lose it for a while during the game, but it's obviously not gone. Even if the Traveler is taken, or possibly destroyed, which it could be, we're going to get it from somewhere else, I suppose. It makes me wonder if the Traveler was ever necessary, which also makes much of the Destiny 1 story pretty pointless. Not that I can say I'm surprised. So far in the mission and strike we've seen, there's still no tension whatsoever, which also has me a little bummed, and the NPCs act the same as before. Ikora and Zavala are still way too stiff, and the Ghost and Cade aren't serious enough. During the inverted strike gameplay in particular, the Ghost makes quips the whole time that completely remove any potential tension in the mission itself. Again, it doesn't feel like there's any type of actual threat, as the Cabal and Vex both die in droves the same way they did in Destiny 1. And apparently, there are now two Ghosts who do the exact same thing, spew out pointless narrative that doesn't really do anything to advance the story. Now, I realize it's only 2 missions, I know, but the strike itself was particularly disappointing, as it didn't seem like anything was on the line. Oh, look, it's an oversized Vex again. Let's kill it and move on to the next strike. Nothing really to see here. I also didn't see any type of loot whatsoever. Did you? It seemed pretty odd to me. I'm hoping that aspect was just removed for this reveal in this build, but I just thought, considering how important loot is in the game, that we'd see something. Time will tell, though. Now, the weapons and armors don't seem changed that much. As far as I can tell, we got to see 4 guaranteed exotics total, and they're all basically Destiny 1 exotics. The Risk Runner SMG appears to be just a toned-down version of the Zalo Supercell. The Sweet Business Chain Gun looks like a reverse Nemesis Star, the major difference being that it increases in rate of fire more like the Abaddon or Thunderlord. Finally, a hand cannon called the Sunshot, which is a Fatebringer with very subtle changes. Although we haven't seen a screenshot of its perks, we did get to see the dubious Volley. Not sure if we'll stick with that name, but it's definitely that weapon. The only cut exotic weapon from the Taken King. Now we know why it never showed up in Destiny 1 at least. The guns all look very neat, don't get me wrong, very Halo-esque mind you. But I'm just wondering if we're going to see some actual different gun types. Most of what I saw were hand cannons, auto rifles, pulse rifles, scouts, the only major difference being the grenade launchers. An SMG really doesn't act much different than an auto rifle, so I don't count that. Now, the supers are tough to talk about. At first glance, they seem like they would be overpowered, and yet that seems circumstantial. In PvP, they look way too strong. But in PvE, I don't know, they didn't seem like they had the same oomph. They look good, there's no two ways around it, I'm not saying that. I guess I just need to play with them a little before I praise or ridicule, that's all. What I'm hoping is that, if nothing else, the Crucible isn't an unbalanced mess where certain abilities and weapons completely dominate while others are insignificant. A lot of people still complain about the current Destiny Crucible, but ask most Year 1 players and they'll tell you there's way more parity now than there was back then. And I just hope we're not in for 6 months of rebalances to deal with. Would it be too much to ask, too, for the bosses to appear to have some type of intelligent AI, instead of just walking around and absorbing any number of shots until they die, with the actual threat coming from the type of light horde mode that spawns all around? I've watched an Ultra from the mission and a Strike now, and both seem like they're more waiting for you to just exhaust their health bars versus actually trying to kill you. And by the way, if they're considering the modular mind, the boss at the end of the Inverted Strike, a 3-phase fight, I'm not sure what they're talking about. Just because the floor falls out and more enemies spawn doesn't mean it's a 3-phase fight. And if that's the criteria, pretty much every Strike boss we've ever fought is at least a multi-phase fight. Think about it. This logic applies to Darkblade, Malak, Kovic, the Shield Brothers, Fallen Saber Strike. Once you get their health bars past a certain point, more enemies spawn in, and they move around the room a little differently. But it's basically always the same pattern. Now, the leveling system also appears largely unchanged, which is also pretty annoying. A level 20 player cap with, I'm guessing, a 200 light level. That seems to be what I saw at least. And I'm assuming the characters we saw were fully leveled as their skill trees were totally open. A few other quick things I just want to note here are that the Crucible itself looks a lot slower. And I'm still wondering why the game modes are going to be 4v4. That's the one they said, at least. I'm not sure if that's going to be for all the different game modes or just certain ones, but it just seems like a step back in my opinion. I don't know. Now, the frame rate being capped at 30 frames per second in a late 2017 game also just seems weird. Now, they mentioned that the consoles just don't have the power to run the game at 60, and that's something I guess I'm just going to have to take their word on. Now, finally, there aren't going to be dedicated servers in Destiny 2, which will most likely keep me from really getting into PvP play again, because the lag and inconsistency from game to game just kept me from enjoying it in Destiny 1, pure and simple. They mentioned that they didn't have the budget for dedicated servers, but I'm sorry, I just can't believe that, with other prominent FPSs supporting it, not to mention that Destiny 1 made over $1 billion. So, that excuse is just a bad one in my opinion. Look, all in all, it appears to me that if you like Destiny now, you should absolutely buy Destiny 2 because it looks like a glorified DLC in almost every way. It's not to say they haven't added some interesting things such as clan integration, matchmaking and endgame content, and what appears to be more cinematic missions from the campaign, not to mention these new Lost sectors, which I'm equating to be like dungeons in many other games, offering special items and loot. But the Homecoming mission reminded me very much of the Coming War mission at the beginning of The Taken King. Lots of dialogue describing the immediate threat, some environmental changes to add ambiance, and 2 to 3 cinematics. Play the mission again, and you tell me what you think. It just doesn't seem really that different. The new AI did nothing the Ghost hasn't done in the past, so again, it's just much of the same thing. My original thoughts for this particular video were pretty scathing, actually. I had an entire list of things I was extremely disappointed in, and each section was long and fairly hostile. As I said before, I feel like this is just an extension of the old game, without the ability to play through the old content once this material gets dry. I don't see tons of innovation, more so just a reskin of Destiny 1. Even the subclasses are the same, where some have the same abilities with a few new ones added in, and some just have the same old name and are almost identical. The weapons, armor, and stat system appear to be the same too. I'm personally more disappointed than anything right now in that I felt like Bungie had the opportunity to go much further in so many different ways. But instead of getting a Taken King style game, new, fresh, and inventive, we're getting more of a Rise of Iron style game with just more of the same thing we've always had. But here's the thing. these are my personal feelings, and I really don't want to influence you too much here. For some people, this is going to be exactly what they want. And let's face it, we're also still months before launch, and there's still a beta to play through. To judge the game now based on some early gameplay from a loose build would probably be very unfair. So I actually tried to redo this video to be a little bit kinder. And I bought the game, so I'm sure I'm going to end up having fun with it, because I've always had fun with Destiny 1. I think I'm just coming to the realization that this new Destiny is never going to be the game I was originally sold on. But maybe that's my fault for trusting a company that's trying to put profits over trying to live up to that original promise of being designed to, quote, create a universe as deep, tangible, and relatable as that of the Star Wars franchise. That's a direct quote from Bungie co-founder Jason Jones. Destiny just doesn't seem anywhere close to it yet. Well, unless you read the Grimoire on a separate website and let your brain get super creative. I'm sincerely hoping that changes in Destiny 2. And it makes me question, is the lore from Destiny 1 going to be in the game of Destiny 2, or are you still going to have to leave in order to get that information? So on that note, I want to get a little personal here. I've been doing Destiny content almost daily for the past 5 months or so, and it's been tough, I won't lie. I've had my entire channel placed in restricted mode, except for, I believe, one unboxing video. And with YouTube's new monetization system taking away any ability for me to make revenue on the channel, I've been putting countless hours into it with really no potential of growing the channel. For those of you that have stuck with me during that time, enjoying the content I've been providing, I can't thank you enough. It's been really, really fun chatting with you, discussing the game, and digging pretty deep into it. You know me, I love to speculate. However, I feel like Destiny 2 so far has, I don't know, it's just really knocked the wind out of my sails, so to speak. It just doesn't feel anything like a sequel, more like a retcon of the story and a reboot of abilities and weapons because of a poor decision on a game engine that didn't allow them to make new content in an efficient manner. Unfortunately for Bungie though, that's not my problem. And I don't like the thought of choosing at some point fairly soon after launch between playing Destiny 2 with a couple strikes, 1 raid, and some game missions, or Destiny 1 with 4 raids, the Prison of Elders, Archon's Forge, 16 strikes, and 51 story missions. If the game is going to be this similar, with things I already know I'm going to like better than the original, you know? As I mentioned, they've locked the frame rate at 30 FPS for Xbox and PS4, so it won't even look that much better, if at all. And I mean, we've seen it so far, and I don't know, it's just not that much better. The whole thing has just made me lose a ton of drive to make content for the channel. I don't know what to say, but I guess I'm just going to take some time and assess where I want to go with things. As I said, I don't want to influence positively or negatively your thoughts on the game too much so long before it actually comes out, but overall, after taking a few days, I'm personally not that happy with it. And now that I've recently accepted a new job outside of Destiny content creation, I'm going to have much less time to dedicate to it. So I have to decide now how or if I still want to contribute within this community. At any rate, thank you again for your support and understanding on the matter. I want you all to have a great day and take care. This is Siege, signing off for now.